The first sound was her voice through my kitchen window at 7:13 a.m. on a Saturday morning in early October. "Hi, Sharp," the kind of voice that cuts through double-pane glass like it isn't even there. "You need to move that truck right now or I'm having it towed." I set my coffee down on the counter and looked out through the blinds. A woman in her mid-50s, blonde highlights, white capris, and a lavender polo with the Ridgemont Estates HOA logo embroidered over the pocket was standing in my driveway pointing at my F-150 like it had personally insulted her family. Behind her, blocking the entire width of my driveway and half of the street, was a 34-foot class, a motorhome with California plates and a bumper sticker that said "Life is better at the lake." The RV had been there since Thursday night. I knew because I had been parking on the street for 2 days. I opened the front door and stepped onto the porch in my socks. "Morning." She did not return the greeting. "Your truck," she said, jabbing her finger toward my F-150, which was parked legally on the street directly in front of my house, "is blocking community access to the turnaround. You need to move it immediately." I looked at my truck. I looked at her RV, which was parked across my driveway, across the painted curb, and into the street far enough that a sedan had to swerve around it to pass. I looked back at her. "Your RV is blocking my driveway. That is temporary. Your truck is a violation." "How long is temporary?" She pulled a small spiral notebook out of her back pocket and flipped it open like a detective about to read me my rights. "The motorhome will be here until Tuesday. We are preparing for a trip to Lake Mead. The turnaround access is a community priority under Section 11.4 of the CC&RS. Your truck is in violation as of this morning, and you have until 9:00 a.m. to move it or I will have it towed at your expense. Do you understand?" Her name was Diane Kowalski. I knew her name because it was on the violation notice she had taped to my front door 3 months earlier when I left my trash cans out until 9:00 a.m. on a Thursday. The notice had been printed on HOA letterhead and signed in blue ink with a little loop on the K that looked like she had practiced it. I didn't say anything yet, I just watched her. She took my silence as defiance. She took everything as defiance. "I see how it is," she said. "New resident thinks the rules don't apply to him. Let me be very clear, Mr. Whoever you are, this is a covenant-controlled community. We have standards. If you cannot abide by those standards, you are going to find yourself in front of the board answering for multiple violations, and I can promise you that will not go the way you think it will." I sipped my coffee. She stared at me for another 3 seconds, snapped the notebook shut, and walked back across my driveway to her house, which was 2 doors down on the same side of the street. The RV sat in my driveway for 4 more days. I parked on the street. I did not call the HOA. I did not knock on her door. I did not leave a note. I went to work. I came home. I walked around the RV like it was a natural feature of the landscape. On Tuesday evening, her husband backed the RV out of my driveway at 6:47 p.m., scraping the rear bumper against the curb hard enough to leave a black streak on the concrete. He did not apologize. He did not wave. He did not look at me standing on my porch watching him. They left for Lake Mead with the RV packed so full the suspension sagged on one side. I stood on the porch until the taillights disappeared around the corner. Then I went inside and pulled the plat map for Ridgemont Estates out of the filing cabinet in my office. I am 58 years old. I sold commercial real estate for 34 years before I retired, the kind of job that teaches you to read a plat map the way most people read a grocery list. I know what a setback is. I know what an easement is. I know what a covenant is, and more importantly, I know what a covenant is not. Diane Kowalski did not know I had been reading plat maps since before she learned to drive. I spread the Ridgemont Estates plat across my dining room table under the overhead light. Ridgemont Estates was a planned community, 112 homes built in 2006 on what used to be a citrus grove. The streets were wide and curved. The houses were stucco with tile roofs. The CC&RS were 48 pages long and mentioned the word aesthetic 19 times. The plat showed every lot, every easement, every setback, and every common area. I traced the property lines with my finger. My lot was number 34. Deanne's lot was number 31. Between her house and the main street was a narrow rectangular parcel, maybe 40 feet wide and 90 feet deep, labeled Lot 30, Common Area, Ridgemont Estates HOA. It was an odd piece of land, too narrow for a house, too deep for a landscaping strip. On the plat, it was marked with diagonal hatching, the universal symbol for property that belongs to everyone and no one. In practice, it was a dirt lot with 2 scraggly palm trees and a chain-link gate that was always open. Diane parked her RV there. She had been parking her RV there for years, according to my neighbor Carl, who had lived in Ridgemont Estates since 2009, and who told me over his back fence one Sunday that Diane treated that lot like it was her own private storage unit. "Nobody else parks there," Carl said. She told everyone it was reserved for board members. I asked Carl if that was true. He shrugged. "Nobody's ever checked." I checked. I pulled the Ridgemont Estates CC&RS that night, all 48 pages. I read them the way a lawyer reads them, which is to say I read them looking for what they did not say as much as what they did. Section 11.4, the section Diane had cited when she screamed at me about the turnaround, said that street parking was limited to 48 hours and that vehicles could not block access to common area turnarounds. It said nothing about Lot 30. It said nothing about RV storage. It said nothing about board members having priority parking. I pulled the county assessor's records online. Lot 30 was owned by Ridgemont Estates HOA. It had been deeded to the HOA in 2006 when the subdivision was built. The assessed value was $11,200. The property taxes were $340 a year paid by the HOA out of the annual dues. It was common area, which meant every homeowner in Ridgemont Estates had an equal right to use it, including me, including Carl. Including the 110 other households who were paying dues to maintain a dirt lot that Deanne Kowalski had claimed as her personal RV garage. I sat at the dining room table for a long time that night looking at the plat. I thought about Diane standing in my driveway at 7:13 a.m. on a Saturday morning, telling me my truck was a violation while her RV blocked my driveway for 4 days. I thought about the way she had said "new resident" like it was an insult. I thought about the trash can violation notice she had taped to my door with the little loop on the K. Then I did something most people would not think to do. I called the HOA management company listed on the CC and RS and asked if Lot 30 was for sale. The woman on the phone, her name was Monica, paused for a long moment. "I don't think so," she said. "It's common area. Can common area be sold? Technically, yes. If the board votes to dispose of an asset, they can sell it. But I don't think they've ever. I'm interested in buying it." Another pause. "You're a homeowner in Ridgemont, Lot 34. Can you put me in touch with the board president?" That would be Deanne Kowalski. Of course it was. I thanked Monica and hung up. I did not call Diane. I did not email the board. I did not file a request to purchase Lot 30 through the proper channels. Instead, I did something most people do not know is possible. I looked up the bylaws for Ridgemont Estates HOA, which were recorded with the county and available to anyone who knew where to look. Section 7.2 of the bylaws stated that any homeowner could petition the board to dispose of common area property by submitting a written request signed by at least 15% of the membership. 15% of 112 homes was 17 signatures. I started knocking on doors the next Saturday. I did not start with Carl, though Carl would have signed immediately. I started with the people I knew were angry. The couple on Lot 48 who had been fined $600 for painting their front door teal, which violated the aesthetic standards even though 3 other houses on the street had teal doors that had been grandfathered in. The man on Lot 52, who had been fined $300 for parking his work van in his own driveway overnight, because commercial vehicles were prohibited, even though Diane's husband parked his plumbing truck in their driveway every single night and had for years. The woman on Lot 67 who had been fined $450 for installing a satellite dish on her roof, which was against the rules, except that Diane had a satellite dish on her roof that was twice the size and had been there since 2014. I did not have to explain much. I told them I was petitioning the board to sell Lot 30, the dirt lot where Diane parked her RV, and that I intended to buy it. I told them the sale would generate revenue for the HOA, reduce the tax burden on common area property, and open up a conversation about how common area was being used. I did not tell them what I planned to do with the lot after I bought it. I did not have to. They signed. I had 17 signatures in 3 days. I had 24 by the end of the week. I submitted the petition to the HOA management company on a Monday morning via certified mail with return receipt requested. Monica called me that afternoon. "Mr. Brennan, I have your petition. I need to let you know that Mrs. Kowalski is not going to be happy about this. I understand. She parks her RV on that lot. I'm aware." There was a pause. "For what it's worth, I think it's a fair question. Thank you, Monica. The board has 30 days to respond under the bylaws. I'll be in touch." She hung up. I waited. Diane showed up at my door 48 hours later. It was a Thursday evening, just after 7:00 p.m. I was in the garage organizing my toolbox when I heard the doorbell ring 4 times in rapid succession, the way people ring a doorbell when they are already angry before you open the door. I came around through the side gate and saw her standing on my porch, arms crossed, the same lavender HOA polo, the same tight jaw. I walked up the steps slowly. "Evening, Diane. Don't you evening me. What the hell do you think you're doing?" I leaned against the porch railing. "You're going to have to be more specific. The petition, Lot 30, you are trying to buy HOA property out from under this community. I'm petitioning the board to sell an underutilized asset. That is not an underutilized asset. That is community property. It's a dirt lot you park your RV on. I use that lot in my capacity as board president for community purposes." "What community purposes?" "Storage of emergency equipment." "Your RV is emergency equipment?" She didn't answer that. She switched tactics the way people like Diane always do when the logic runs out. "You are trying to disrupt this community, Mr. Brennan. You have been here less than 6 months and you are already filing petitions, stirring up residents and attempting to privatize common area. Let me be very clear, the board will not approve this sale, and if you continue down this path you are going to find yourself in violation of so many covenants that you will not be able to sneeze without getting a fine." I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. She took that as weakness. She took everything as weakness unless you fought back, and even then she took it as insubordination. "You have no idea who you are dealing with," she said. "I have been president of this HOA for 9 years. I have removed 3 board members, settled 2 lawsuits, and personally ensured that this neighborhood maintains property values that are 18% higher than the surrounding area. You do not get to walk in here and dismantle what I have built. I sipped from the water bottle I had carried out of the garage. Diane's face flushed. She pointed at me, the same jabbing finger she had used in my driveway 3 weeks earlier. This petition will fail. And when it does, I am going to make it my personal mission to ensure that you regret ever moving into Ridgemont Estates. She turned and walked down my porch steps, across my driveway, and back toward her house. She did not look back. I stood on the porch and finished my water. The Ring camera by my front door had recorded the entire exchange, including the part where she threatened to fine me into regret for exercising my rights under the bylaws she had approved. I went back into the garage and finished organizing my toolbox. The board meeting was scheduled for the third Tuesday of the month, 6:30 p.m. at the clubhouse. I arrived at 6:15 and sat in the back row. The room was more crowded than usual. I counted 38 residents, which Monica later told me was triple the normal attendance. Diane sat at the head table with 4 other board members. She did not look at me when I walked in, but I could tell she knew I was there. The meeting started on time. Diane moved through the agenda with the efficiency of someone who had run these meetings so many times she could do it in her sleep. Approval of minutes, treasurer's report, landscaping update. And then at item 6 she paused. Before we move to new business, I want to address a petition that was submitted last week by a resident seeking to dispose of Lot 30. She said a resident like she was referring to a stain on the carpet. I did not react. The board has reviewed this petition, Diane continued, and we have determined that it is not in the best interest of the community to sell common area property at this time. Lot 30 serves a vital function as overflow parking and emergency access, and the revenue generated by a sale would not offset the loss of utility to the membership. Therefore, the board votes to deny the petition. A man in the second row, someone I recognized from my signature drive, raised his hand. Diane ignored him. All in favor of denying the petition, the man stood up. "Excuse me, Madam President," Diane stopped. "Yes, Mr. Callahan. When you say Lot 30 serves as overflow parking, do you mean the lot where you park your RV?" The room shifted. I felt it happen, that small physical thing a room does when everyone realizes the question they were thinking just got asked out loud. "That lot," Diane said carefully, "is available for use by any resident who needs temporary parking for oversized vehicles. How many residents have used it in the past year?" The petition says 24 homeowners signed it. That's more than 20% of the community. How is that not relevant? Diane's jaw tightened. "Mr. Callahan, the board has made its decision." A woman in the 4th row stood up. "I didn't sign the petition, but I want to know why we're paying property taxes on a lot that only one person uses." Another voice from the back. "I was fined $400 last year for parking my boat trailer in my driveway for 3 days." Diane parks her RV on common area for 6 months out of the year. The room was unraveling. I stayed in my seat. I did not say a word. I did not have to. Diane tried to gavel the room back to order. She tried twice. The third time, one of the other board members, a man in his 60s with white hair and glasses, leaned over and said something to her I could not hear. Diane set the gavel down. She looked at me for the first time that night. "Mr. Brennan," she said. "Would you like to address the board?" I stood up slowly. I did not walk to the front. I just stood in the back row and spoke clearly enough that everyone could hear. I submitted a petition signed by 24 residents requesting that the board sell Lot 30. The bylaws require the board to consider that petition in good faith. A vote to deny without discussion, without appraisal, and without presenting the financials to the membership is not good faith. It's a unilateral decision by a board president who has a personal interest in keeping that lot off the market. I paused. If the board votes to deny the petition tonight, I will file a formal objection with the management company and request a special meeting under Section 8.3 of the bylaws, which allows any member to call a vote of no confidence in the board if 20% of the membership supports it. I already have the signatures. The room went completely silent. Diane stared at me. The other board members stared at Diane. The white-haired man with glasses leaned over and whispered something else to her. This time I saw her shoulders drop half an inch. She looked at the table in front of her for a long moment, then she looked up. "The board will table the vote on the petition pending an independent appraisal of Lot 30. We will reconvene in 30 days. I sat down. The meeting ended 10 minutes later. Diane did not speak to me on the way out. Weeks later, the appraisal came back. Lot 30 was valued at $47,000. The board scheduled a special meeting to vote on the sale. This time, 61 residents showed up. The vote was 4-1 in favor of selling the lot. Diane was the one. The HOA listed Lot 30 for sale the following week. I submitted an offer for $50,000, all cash, no contingencies, close in 15 days. There were no other offers. The sale closed on a Tuesday in late November. I took possession of Lot 30 on a cold morning with my name on the deed and a plan I had been thinking about for 8 weeks. The first thing I did was install a fence. 8 feet tall, black aluminum with a locking gate and a private property sign bolted to the front. I had the fence installed on a Saturday morning by a crew I had used before. It took 4 hours. Diane came out of her house twice to watch. She did not say anything. She did not have to. By noon, the fence was up and the gate was locked. The second thing I did was have the lot graded and graveled. I hired a landscaper to remove the 2 scraggly palm trees and spread 3 inches of decomposed granite across the entire surface. It looked clean. It looked intentional. It looked like exactly what it was, a private lot. On a Sunday afternoon in early December, Diane knocked on my door. I answered. She was holding a printed piece of paper. "This is a formal request," she said, "to lease parking space on your lot for my RV." I looked at the paper. It was typed single-spaced with a signature line at the bottom. "How much are you offering?" She blinked. "Excuse me, you said lease. How much?" "I am offering to lease the space at fair market value." "Which is," she hesitated, "$200 a month." I shook my head. "No, thank you, Mr. Brennan. I have been parking on that lot for 9 years. It is not my lot anymore, it's yours. You bought it out of spite." "I bought it because the HOA voted to sell it and I made a fair offer." "You orchestrated that vote. I filed a petition that 24 of your neighbors signed." Deanne folded the paper and put it back in her pocket. "How much do you want?" I thought about that for a moment. I thought about her standing in my driveway at 7:13 a.m. on a Saturday morning, telling me my truck was a violation while her RV blocked my driveway for 4 days. I thought about the trash can notice with the little loop on the K. I thought about Ruth Calloway, who I had never met, but who Carl told me had been fined into selling her house 3 years earlier after Diane decided her front yard landscaping violated the aesthetic standards. "I'm not leasing the lot, Diane." "Then what are you going to do with it?" "I'm going to park my truck there." She stared at me. "Your truck?" "My truck." "You spent $50,000 on a lot to park a truck you could park in your own driveway." "I spent $50,000 on a lot because I wanted to, and because it was for sale. Because the HOA voted to sell it." She opened her mouth. She closed it. She turned and walked back to her house. I never saw her RV in Ridgemont Estates again. She started parking it at a storage facility on the north side of town. Carl told me it cost her $280 a month. Deanne stepped down as HOA president 4 months later. The board elected a new president, a retired teacher named Angela, who ran on a platform of reducing fines and increasing transparency. The first thing Angela did was rescind 11 outstanding violations that had been issued in the final month of Diane's tenure. 3 of them were mine. I still own lot 30. I park my truck there most days. Sometimes I park my boat trailer there when I come back from the lake. Sometimes I let Carl park his truck there when his driveway is full. It's my lot. I get to decide. Diane moved out of Ridgemont Estates in June. I heard from Angela that she and her husband bought a house in a different subdivision, one with no HOA. I stood on my porch the day the moving truck pulled away and I did not wave. The fence around lot 30 is still up. The gate is still locked. And the sign that says private property is still bolted to the front. Some people drive by and wonder why someone would spend $50,000 on a dirt lot just to park a truck. I know why. Because the dirt doesn't care what people think they own. It only knows what is written on the deed.